This episode is based on driver logs, convoy reports, and command orders recovered from United States Army Transportation Corps archives. The voices you'll hear come from the men who kept General Patton's Third Army moving in the summer and fall of 1944. No headlights. Cat eyes only. 12 hours to move, fuel, or Patton stops. One convoy. One night. August 1944. The Red Ball Express. 6,000 trucks. 12,500 tons a day. 82 days straight. This is the story of one driver's night run and the narrow window that kept an entire army rolling. August 25, 1944. 6 weeks after D-Day, the Allied breakout from Normandy was accelerating faster than anyone expected. General George S. Patton's Third Army was racing east, hundreds of miles covered in days. Towns liberated, German forces in retreat. But there was a problem. Patton's tanks were outrunning their fuel supply. The ports of Cherbourg and the Normandy beaches were hundreds of miles, behind the front lines. Every gallon of gasoline, every shell, every ration had to be trucked forward. The solution? The Red Ball Express. A dedicated convoy system. One-way routes. Priority clearance. Around-the-clock operations. The question this episode explores: how did one driver's 12-hour night run, with no headlights and a single missed checkpoint, become the difference between momentum and stall? Let me give you the numbers. The Red Ball Express ran for 82 days, from August 25th to November 16th, 1944. At its peak, nearly 6,000 trucks, over 23,000 soldiers, most of them African American, assigned to segregated quartermaster units. Daily tonnage target, 12,500 tons. Distance, round trips of 600 to 700 miles, from the coast to the front and back. One missed convoy meant tanks stopped, artillery went silent, infantry dug in instead of advancing. The pressure was immense. His name was James Carter. Not the president, a different Jimmy Carter. Age 24. From Georgia. A corporal in the 666th Quartermaster Truck Company. Jimmy had been driving supply trucks since the summer of 1943. North Africa, Italy, and now France. On the night of August 28, 1944, Jimmy's log recorded this. Loaded 0, 200 hours, 55-gallon drums, fuel. 2.5-ton GMC, serial 4478, cat eyes only, no stops except checkpoint. Estimated time of arrival forward depot 1400 hours, 12 hours, no headlights. No bathroom breaks, no food stops. Just drive. The convoy assembled at a depot outside St. Lo. Rows of GMC Deuce and a half trucks, canvas-covered cargo beds. Drivers checking tire pressure, oil, fuel. The briefing was short. Stay in interval, 60 to 90 seconds between vehicles. Do not bunch up. Do not pass unless signaled. Follow MP markers. Red Ball route only, no civilian. Roads. Jimmy's truck was number 17 in a line of 40. Each truck carried approximately 2,000 pounds of fuel drums. Strapped down, tarped, ready. At 02:30 hours, the first truck rolled out. Jimmy waited, counted to 90, then followed. Cat eyes. That's what they called the blackout driving lights. Tiny slits of light. Just enough to see the truck ahead, nothing more. No headlights, no running lights. Total blackout discipline. Even in late 1944, the Luftwaffe could still hit unprotected convoys. So the Red Ball rolled in near darkness. Jimmy kept his eyes on the faint red glow of the truck ahead. 60 seconds of distance. Not too close. Not too far. The road was rough. Patched craters from earlier shelling. Detours around destroyed bridges. But the route was marked. White signs with a red ball. Every junction. Every turn. Military police at every checkpoint, keeping the route clear, keeping civilian traffic off. 2 hours into the run, The convoy hit the first major bottleneck, a narrow stone bridge over a river, built in the 1800s, wide enough for one truck at a time. The lead truck slowed, stopped, waited for clearance from the MP on the far side. One by one, trucks crossed. Slowly. Jimmy's truck was 17th. He waited, engine idling, eyes on the truck ahead. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Every minute lost meant fuel arrived later. Tanks waited longer. The front stalled. But there was no other route. The bridge had to be crossed. 3 hours in, just past the bridge. The truck ahead of Jimmy pulled to the side of the road. Flat tire. Jimmy slowed, passed carefully, kept his interval with the next truck ahead. Behind him, truck 18 did the same. The broken-down truck's crew jumped out. 2 men. They had a spare. They had jacks. They'd practiced this. But it still took time. In his log, Jimmy later wrote, 05:30 hours, truck 16 flat. 5-minute delay at kilometer, marker 47. Maintained interval with 15. 5 minutes. In a 12-hour run, 5 minutes might not seem like much. But multiply that across 40 trucks, across dozens of convoys, across 82 days. Every minute mattered. Halfway through the run, Jimmy reached a major MP checkpoint, a crossroads. 2 routes converged here. Red Ball convoys from different depots all funneled through this point. An MP waved Jimmy through. No, stop. Just a visual check. Serial number confirmed. Keep rolling, Corporal. You're on time. On time. That meant the convoy was hitting its target speed, roughly 25 miles per hour average, including stops. It doesn't sound fast. But on bombed roads, in blackout conditions, with 2,000-pound loads, it was the best they could do. Jimmy pressed on. Hour 8. The sun was starting to rise. Cat eyes off. Daylight driving now. But fatigue was setting in. Jimmy had been awake for over 24 hours. This run started at 0200. Before that, he'd been loading trucks since the previous afternoon. No sleep, coffee and adrenaline. And then the rumor started. A truck up ahead radioed back. Aircraft spotted. Unidentified. The convoy didn't stop, but every driver tensed. Luftwaffe? Allied? Just a transport? 30 seconds later, another call. Allied P-47. Friendly. Relief. But the fear was real. Even in late 1944, convoys were vulnerable. Stay tight. Stay alert. Keep rolling. Let me give you the view from command. Third Army G4, Logistics Section, calculated this. To sustain Patton's advance, the Army needed 400,000 gallons of fuel per day, minimum. Each truck carried roughly 1,000 gallons in 55-gallon drums. That's 400 truckloads of fuel alone. Add ammunition, rations, spare parts, medical supplies. Total daily requirement, 12,500 tons. At peak efficiency, the Red Ball moved approximately 12,500 tons per day. That meant zero margin for error. 1 breakdown, 1 delayed convoy, 1 bridge closure. And the math didn't work. Jimmy didn't know those numbers. He just knew. Don't stop. Some convoys used relay points. A driver would take a load halfway, hand it off to a fresh driver, and turn back with empties. Jimmy's convoy didn't use relays that night, straight through. But at kilometer 112, there was a fueling and maintenance point, a quick stop, 10 minutes max. Drivers could grab coffee, use a latrine, check tires. Jimmy topped off his fuel tank, drank half a canteen of water, stretched his legs. An MP checked his log. You're 20 minutes ahead of schedule. Good work. 20 minutes. A cushion. In case something went wrong in the final stretch, Jimmy climbed back into the cab, started the engine. 4 more hours to go. 1,400 hours. Early afternoon. Jimmy's convoy rolled into the forward supply depot. Rows of tents, stacks of crates, fuel dump marked. with red flags. An officer with a clipboard waved Jimmy to his unloading zone. Fuel drums, Bay 7, unload and report. Jimmy backed the truck into position. 2 quartermaster soldiers climbed onto the bed, started rolling drums off. 55-gallon drums. Heavy. Hot in the afternoon sun. 20 minutes later, the truck was empty. Jimmy signed the manifest, turned in his log. Good run, Corporal. No incidents. No incidents. That was a win. 2 hours after Jimmy's convoy arrived, elements of the 4th Armored Division refueled and pushed east. By nightfall, they had advanced another 15 miles. Patton's momentum held. In his after-action report, the 3rd Army G4 noted, fuel deliveries via Red Ball Express met daily requirements. No operational delays due to supply shortages. That one sentence represented thousands of truck runs, tens of thousands of drivers, millions of gallons of fuel. And men like Jimmy, who drove 12 hours with no headlights and didn't stop. Jimmy's log for August 28, 1944, ends with this. Arrived forward depot, 1400 hours. Fuel delivered. Truck 4478, operational. Return trip departed 1600 hours. Estimated time of arrival base depot 0400 hours, 29th August. He turned around and drove back, another 12 hours, in the dark again. And the next night, he did it again. For 82 days, the Red Ball Express ran. Rain, heat, fatigue, fear, they kept rolling. Let me tell you about the conditions. The Red Ball route was a dedicated road network, one way in each direction, marked with white signs bearing a Red Ball symbol. Military police controlled every intersection. Civilian traffic was diverted. All other military convoys had to yield. Red Ball had absolute priority. Why? Because the numbers were unforgiving. 3rd Army consumed roughly 800,000 gallons of fuel per day when fully engaged. That's 800 truckloads. Every day. The supply depots on the coast had the fuel. The front needed it. The only way to bridge that gap was non-stop trucking. The drivers worked in shifts. Some drove straight through. Some used relay points. But the trucks never stopped. As soon as a driver delivered his load, he picked up empties and drove back. Then he loaded again and started over. 12 hours on, 8 hours off. Then 12 hours on again. For 82 days. The conditions were brutal. Summer heat, dust, rain that turned dirt roads into mud, breakdowns, accidents, and always the fear of German air attack or artillery. But the convoys kept moving. The Red Ball Express is often remembered for its numbers. 6,000 trucks, 12,500 tons per day, 412,000 tons total over 82 days. But behind those numbers were men. Most of them were African American soldiers, assigned to segregated quartermaster units, truck drivers, mechanics, loaders. They didn't get the headlines, they didn't get the medals, but they got the job done. Jimmy Carter was one of them. 24 years old, a high school graduate from rural Georgia. He'd enlisted in 1942, trained as a truck driver, shipped to North Africa in 43, drove supplies through Italy, and in August of 44, he was driving the Red Ball. In interviews after the war, Red Ball drivers described the experience in simple terms. You drove until you couldn't stay awake, then you pulled over for an hour, then you drove again. You didn't think about the big picture. You didn't think about Patton or Paris or Berlin. You thought about the truck ahead of you. The next checkpoint. The next delivery. One driver said, "We knew the guys at the front needed fuel. If we didn't deliver, they stopped. If they stopped, people died. So we didn't stop." That was the mentality. No excuses. No delays. Keep rolling. The phrase, "keep M rolling," became the unofficial motto of the Red Ball Express. It was painted on trucks, shouted at checkpoints, written in logs. It meant, no matter what happens, keep moving. Let me put the Red Ball Express in strategic context. In August of 1944, the Allies broke out of Normandy. Patton's Third Army raced east. In 3 weeks, they covered over 400 miles. They liberated hundreds of towns. They reached the German border by early September. But that advance created a logistics nightmare. The supply lines stretched longer every day. The ports in Normandy couldn't keep up. There weren't enough trucks. There weren't enough drivers. And the infrastructure, roads and bridges, was damaged from years of war and recent bombing. Senior Allied commanders knew this. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, wrote in his memoirs that logistics, not German resistance, was the greatest challenge in the summer of 1944. He called the supply situation critical and the limiting factor in our operations. Red Ball Express was the emergency solution. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't efficient by peacetime standards, but it worked. For 82 days, the Red Ball moved enough supplies to keep Patton advancing. When the Express finally shut down in mid-November, it had delivered over 412,000 tons of cargo. Historians debate what would have happened without the Red Ball. Some argue the advance would have stalled weeks earlier. Others say alternative supply methods would have been found. But everyone agrees, the Red Ball Express bought time, and in war, time is everything. After the war, Jimmy Carter went home to Georgia. He didn't talk much about the Red Ball. His family knew he'd driven trucks in Europe. They knew he'd been part of something important, but he didn't share the details. It wasn't unusual. Many Red Ball drivers felt the same way. They'd done their job, they'd come home, they wanted to move on. And in the segregated South of the 1940s and 50s, there wasn't much appetite for celebrating African American contributions to the war effort. Decades later, historians began to recover the story of the Red Ball Express. Unit records, after-action reports, driver logs, oral histories. Slowly, the picture came together. The scale of the operation, the conditions, the human cost, and the critical role it played in the Allied victory. Jimmy Carter's grandson found his grandfather's log in a box of papers after Jimmy passed away in 2003. The log was brief. Dates, times, loads delivered. No personal reflections, no drama, just the facts. But those facts told a story. 82 days, dozens of runs, thousands of miles, no incidents. The grandson donated the log to the United States Army Transportation Museum at Fort Eustis, Virginia. It's now part of the permanent collection, a small piece of a much larger story. The Red Ball Express is remembered today as one of the most successful emergency logistics operations in military history. It proved that with enough trucks, enough drivers, and enough determination, an army could sustain a rapid advance even when traditional supply lines broke down. But the legacy goes deeper than logistics. The Red Ball Express was a proving ground for African American soldiers. At a time when the military was still segregated, when black soldiers were often relegated to support roles and denied recognition, the Red Ball drivers showed what they could do. They worked longer hours. They drove more miles. They delivered more cargo than anyone thought possible. After the war, many Red Ball veterans became advocates for civil rights. They'd served their country. They'd proven themselves under fire. And they weren't willing to accept second-class citizenship at home. The Red Ball Express didn't end segregation, but it was part of the long fight for equality and recognition. Today, the Red Ball route is commemorated with historical markers in France. Museums in the United States display Red Ball trucks and memorabilia. Veterans organizations honor the drivers, and historians continue to document their stories. The lesson of the Red Ball Express is simple. Wars are won by the people who show up, who do the job, who keep moving when everything else stops. Men like Jimmy Carter, who drove through the night, who delivered the fuel, who kept them rolling. If your family has Red Ball Express letters, logs, or photographs, we'd love to hear about them. Leave a comment below. Help us preserve these stories. In our next episode, we'll explore another hidden story from World War II, the P-51 Mustang, long-range escort, one sortie, one decision, and the moment a pilot chose to stay with his wingman instead of turning back. If you want to hear that story, subscribe to this channel. New episodes every week, each one based on letters, logs, and first-hand accounts recovered from archives around the world. Thank you for listening. And thank you to the men of the Red Ball Express, the men who kept them rolling.